Good morning. We have 20 members of the public registered to speak today. The first 30 minutes of public comment will be delivered at the board meeting, and the remainder will be posted online for the public and board members on October 28th, 2020. I would like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks. Thank you for your patience and understanding throughout the virtual public comment session. The next speaker is Senator Brad Hoylman.
Hello, I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman, representing the 27th Senate District. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment. I know the MTA continues to face an extraordinary fiscal crisis, and I truly appreciate the MTA staff's continued dedication to moving New Yorkers and keeping them safe. I last spoke to you in August to raise the alarm about the existential threat facing merchants at Grand Central Terminal. Many of these businesses reached out to my office to share grave concerns about their ability to pay market rent, given the precipitous drop in foot traffic and the restrictions placed upon their operation to protect public health. I asked you then to extend a lifeline to these small businesses and to set a good example for landlords across New York State. And that is exactly what you're doing today with your proposal to abate months of past rent and to charge rent based on revenue moving forward. This is a transformative action that will keep businesses open, save jobs, and finally allow Grand Central Terminal's merchants to exit crisis mode and plan for a future after the pandemic. To take a couple of examples, for Lilac Chocolates, it's a vote of confidence that government has the back of small business. For Aneyo Jewelry, it's an assurance that their operations at Grand Central are sustainable. And for every small business in Grand Central, it's a chance for hope. I'm deeply grateful to Councilmember Keith Powers for his partnership as an advocate over the last several months, and to the MTA, to Chairman Foy, to Jan Oliver, and of course to Governor Cuomo for listening to our concerns and responding with concrete action. I urge you to vote in favor of relief today. I've also heard from businesses who say this is still not enough, so I urge you to follow up on this vote to deliver additional aid and abatement where it is sorely needed. The moment we're faced with leaves us with few good options, but it remains critical for all of us to pull together as New Yorkers and to recognize that our struggles are shared. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide comment and for your consideration today.
The next speaker is Assemblymember Deborah Glick.
Thank you very much to all members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. You will have before you a proposal for rent relief for the retail tenants at all of your facilities. I am particularly interested in the Grand Central Terminal retailers with whom I have met and spoken. Some of them have other locations in my district. I think the proposal is a fair one. I think it's fair to the retailers, and I also think it's fair to the MTA. In the recovery, it will be very difficult to fill empty spaces. So where you have successful vendors, where you have successful retailers, I think it is in the interest of the MTA and the public that you do everything you can to assist in keeping them in their spaces. So I urge a unanimous vote on the proposal, and I thank many of the MTA employees with whom I have spoken and who have worked so hard to make this proposal a good one. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the time to address you.
The next speaker is Councilmember Keith Powers.
Hi there, I'm City Council Member Keith Powers. I am the City Council member representing Grand Central, right down the block from my office. I want to first thank my colleague, State Senator Brad Hoylman, for his efforts here to make sure that the businesses that are in our district have a voice at the table when it comes to negotiating rent relief. I want to voice my support for this program, which I think has been put together in a fashion that really included the businesses, but also made sure that there was a dialogue between stakeholders to make sure this program works. And I want to thank the MTA as well, because I've been encouraged by their willingness to come to the table to negotiate and to put together a program that addressed some of the needs of the small businesses here. And to recognize that even in a difficult moment for the MTA, which is going to require real federal relief and real solutions to help address the budget gap, that these small business owners have put so much of their life savings into their business, and they're going to need the rent relief right now to make sure that they have a future in Grand Central for when life does come back to normal. So I do encourage you to pass this program. I want to say thank you to State Senator Hoylman and the folks at the MTA for helping to put this program together. And of course, to continue to advocate for these small businesses that so desperately need it right now at a very difficult moment in our city. So thank you, and I will continue to look forward to working together to help rescue the MTA, address issues in Midtown, and save our small businesses. Thanks so much.
The next speaker is Councilmember Ydanis Rodriguez.
First of all, thank you to all leaders of the MTA. I want to take this opportunity to highlight the importance that the federal government sent the financial support that we need in order for the MTA to deal with the crisis. Everyone knows, as the MTA has said, that if we don't get the financial support, we can be dealing with services cut, massive layout, fare increases. And that's going to be very difficult for New Yorkers that they are already struggling. So I think that at the same time that, as I have always said, that the MTA can always work to control costs, to bring transparency. I believe that the MTA should explore working with the private sector to use the rail yard that can be developed for economic development and affordable housing and raise revenue. I believe that it is a responsibility of the federal government to send the financial support that we need. The MTA is the largest transportation system, is one of the most important ones in the whole nation. It's not only important for New York City, Jersey, Connecticut, Westchester, and Long Island. So the time is now for us to rescue the MTA, and we need the federal government to please send the financial support that we need. Ayudemos todos a salvar a la MTA.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sheila Benesh.
Hello, my name is Sheila Benesh, and I'm the transportation planner at PCAC. At last month's board meeting, the MTA announced that it was amending its rules of conduct to codify emergency rules that were put in place on April 29th. On May 20th, the day of the MTA's board meeting, notice of a 60-day public comment period to make the new rules permanent was published in the New York State Register. Why weren't riders or board members notified of the proposed rules either at the May or July board meeting when they were renewed? There are numerous channels the MTA could have used to notify riders. Unfortunately, none were used. Therefore, it shouldn't be a surprise that no public comments were received. It's important to engage riders on rules that will directly impact them. The lack of transparency in this process contributes to rider distrust at the MTA. The amended rules of conduct include prohibiting any wheeled cart greater than 30 inches in either length or width. However, not all New Yorkers have access to affordable fresh produce within walking distance and rely on transit to do their grocery shopping. Many use a cart to transport their items. When shopping for a family, a 30-inch cart is not that big. Many New Yorkers do not have access to cars or cannot afford car services. Prohibiting this option drives riders away from transit at exactly the time the MTA should be encouraging riders to use transit. Another amended rule is limiting the time riders can be in a station. For the railroads, there is a 90-minute time limit. A person can use shelters, train platforms, or furniture in any area of the station. If you miss your train, it's a 90-minute wait until the next train, or if a service disruption leads to a 90-minute gap in service, where are riders supposed to go? Further making it inconvenient for riders does not encourage them to take the train. The MTA should be building public trust and engaging riders, especially when it directly affects them in their everyday needs. They might have gotten some good ideas about how to adjust the rules to reflect New Yorkers' way of life and reliance on public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Lisa Daglian.
Greetings. I'm Lisa Daglian, Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. I had sincerely hoped to be able to talk about what the hard-fought passage of this stimulus package that includes up to $12 billion for the MTA means for riders. I had hoped we'd be able to congratulate you on successful completion of the L-line work and then talk about prioritizing as you resume the capital program. I think we'd all hope that would be the case. Well, congratulations are still in order. Riders may be fewer in number, but we do appreciate your efforts to improve the system, so thank you. The reality is that the good news is more than offset by the dreadful prospect that only 15 stations instead of 39 may see planned accessibility work. System improvements and modernization projects now on hold could be by years, putting the 21st century system we deserve and that was in our sights in jeopardy. Unfathomable service cuts and unaffordable fare hikes are in the all too foreseeable future. Layoffs are an abhorrent but tangible possibility. The consequences to region cannot be overstated. An economic train wreck looms without an influx of federal funding. Please pardon the expression. State Controller Tom DiNapoli spoke volumes when he warned of the devastating and generational consequences of inaction. His is the late voice to ring the alarm. Our subways, buses, and commuter routes do more than move us. They are the economic engine of the region. Our recovery cannot happen without critical aid now being debated again and again in Washington. Our message to Congress is loud and clear. Our region relies on the MTA, and the MTA is relying on you. It's also up to all of us to vote on or before November 3rd. It's our chance to express at the polls how important transit really is. The future of subways, buses, and trains, the future of our region could be decided there. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Matt Camper.
Good morning, MTA Board. My name is Matt Camper, and I'm a Regional Director for Long Island for Passengers United. I'm here this morning to talk about an idea for when the main line is shut down for work on the third track project. Before I give my idea, I would like to say that the plan you guys have for November 14th and 15th is a lot better plan than what it's been for since this project started, and I hope that will continue into 2021. I've been hearing that the Babylon branch has been having trains late, all because of congestion caused by the extra trains needed for the shuttle trains between Hicksville and Babylon. Plus, also I understand that the shuttle trains are used by GM30 ACs, which can run into and out of Penn Station. My plan for when the main line is shut down for work for the third track project in 2021 would help riders save on their commutes on weekends. My plan would be to keep the service along the Huntington and Port Jefferson branches, along with the Ronkonkoma branch, the same as it is now. However, the difference is the shuttle trains would become a Z train from Hicksville to Penn Station in both directions via the Central and Babylon branches, stopping at the following stations: Bethpage, Amityville, Massapequa, Belmore, Freeport, Jamaica, Woodside, and Penn Station. This, I believe, would save riders between 15 and 30 minutes on their trips. On the Babylon branch, I would replace service to hourly to accommodate the Z train. In regards to the Hempstead branch, I would keep half-hourly service to accommodate those at Mineola, Merlon Avenue, and New Hyde Park. And for those on the Oyster Bay branch, I believe the buses should go to and from Floral Park instead of going to Hempstead. It would go via Hillside Avenue from East Wilson. I really hope that my suggestion that I've given you can be used to help riders in the future till electrification is in place on the Central branch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Larry Rubenstein.
Good morning. My name is Larry Rubenstein, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council. First, I want to express our appreciation to the 5 heroic Long Island Railroad workers who saved the life of a rider who fell on the tracks at East New York Station this past week. They exemplify the high caliber of Long Island Railroad workers who have continued to serve riders and ensure the safety throughout these extraordinary times. We also saw the Long Island Railroad's commitment to safety over the weekend with the elimination of the grade crossing in New Hyde Park. The main line is now fully graded, separated from Queens as far as Mineola Station. This is an important sign of progress and investment in the future of the railroad, Long Island, and the entire region. We're beginning to see a gradual uptick in ridership numbers on the railroad, reaching 92,500 riders on September 25th, the highest level since March, according to the Partnership for New York City. But as Newsday notes, we may not see the same numbers of riders as pre-pandemic, or we may not see very different commuter patterns in the near future. Our chairman, Jerry Brigham, was quoted in the article that appeared on Monday that I'd like to clarify that he did not under any circumstances mean that station improvements and system upgrades be reconsidered. We know that these investments are critical to the future of the railroad and to getting riders back on board. He did, however, underscore the importance of funding to get us to our new normal and to be able to address what comes next. The terrible truth is that without an infusion of federal funding, Long Island Railroad riders are facing service cuts of up to 50% and even the closure of some complete lines. Unaffordable fare increases could put commuting by train out of reach for many of us. To our elected officials, riders are counting on you to come through with the funding the MTA and the Long Island Railroad needs. We need our elected officials to do the right thing for the future of the Long Island Railroad, Long Island, and the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rachel Foss.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Foss, and I'm the Senior Research Analyst for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable state government, including for authorities like the MTA. In September, an MTA board member suggested borrowing the maximum amount from the Federal Reserve's Municipal Liquidity Facility, or MLF, program, or $2.9 billion in 3-year loans on top of the $450 million borrowed in August. Should the MTA seek to borrow from the MLF, we recommend that it work with the Fed and Senator Schumer to improve the program. The MLF program, importantly, is not a substitute for direct emergency aid, but it could support the MTA with a low-interest bridge loan as it weathers the COVID-19 crisis and waits for federal funding. Importantly, this short-term loan from the Fed also cannot be an excuse for the governor to raid MTA dedicated funds. The governor must do his part and deliver to the MTA 100% of the dedicated funding that comes in. This means not withholding any funds and not subjecting MTA dedicated taxes to the 20% across the board cuts, an additional $600 million hit. To raid MTA dedicated funds to make up for New York State general fund shortfalls while the MTA is borrowing nearly $3 billion more from the Fed would undermine the case before Congress for federal emergency aid. According to the state comptroller's monthly cash report, New York State is sitting on a cash hoard of more than $22.5 billion as of the end of September 2020, 54% more than it had in September 2019. The MTA is in much worse shape than New York State, as MTA ridership is still down nearly 70%. Full state support is also important for the MTA's credit ratings. In its last downgrade, Kroll expressed concern about the delay and possible reduction in MMTOA funds, saying, "The delay of funds is inconsistent with CBRA's expectation of uninterrupted state support of MTA operations." Should the MTA seek a bridge loan via the Fed's MLF program, it should work to get the conditions as favorable as possible. This means extending the program through 2022, lowering interest rates, expanding to 5-year bond terms, and considering increasing the total borrowing cap. Together with all these changes, this would not be a substitute for emergency aid, but it is also not an excuse for the state to raid MTA dedicated funds. We urge Congress to pass emergency aid and for the state to provide its full commitment to the MTA by delivering 100% of the dedicated taxes that come in. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mary Parson Lavelle.
Good morning. My name is Mary Parson Lavelle, Chair of Civics United for Railroad Environmental Solutions. Last week, CURES and elected officials from the city and state opposed a permit submitted to the DEC to open a new waste transfer station in Brentwood that uses freight rail. More waste by rail means more diesel pollution for more than 1 million residents in Nassau, Suffolk, and Queens who live within a kilometer of existing and planned waste by rail facilities. As you heard me speak repeatedly, the locomotives used by New York and Atlantic Railway are high polluting 1970 locomotives. There is still $14 million in state appropriations to repower and upgrade the antiquated MP-15 locomotives to Tier 4 switcher locomotives, enough money to upgrade 7 locomotives. Take the old MP-15s like other railroads have done and upgrade them for $1.8 million per locomotive and take 95% of that pollution out of New York's air forever. A cost-efficient switcher repower project is needed, not a gold-plated RFP for brand new line hauls. During COVID, more than 1 million residents of Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk counties are breathing needless diesel locomotive pollution because the MTA, Long Island Railroad, hasn't completed a Tier 4 switcher repower of MP-15 locomotives. This permit application to expand waste by rail from Suffolk County will put 1,000 more rail cars into circulation to ship 2,300 tons of waste by rail daily. More than 1 million people in Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk live within 1 kilometer of existing and planned waste by rail facilities where the old locomotives you have failed to replace operate. Waste by rail off of Long Island is expanding, and it is this board's responsibility to get this done. The money is there. Spend it wisely. Stop needlessly harming the health of more than 1 million people by not completing this New York and Atlantic Railway switcher repowering project when you were given appropriations to do so. So please, let's get this done. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anuta Zelikson.
Yes, hello. My name is Anuta Zelikson, and I'm the owner and operator of small business in Grand Central Terminal called Inaya Jewelry. We have been in business for 18 years and 11 of them in Grand Central Terminal. We have never been late with our rent payments, but due to pandemic, it is, and all of its side effects, it's impossible for us to pay the market rate. We went from 80 people coming to the store per day before COVID-19 to 2 people on a good day. We got in touch with Senator Brett Holman and his office, and we're so grateful to him and his team for reaching out to MTA to try to come up with a solution to save small business. Out of 17 stores in our passage, only 9 are left, and only 3 of them are small business. I urge the board to pass this proposal. It is a matter of surviving or not for us and everybody else. I thank the MTA office for coming up with a solution to rectify the rent agreement to reflect current situation and give us a real chance to survive. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Timbrell.
My name is Chris Timbrell, and together with my wife, Caroline Bell, we are the owners of Cafe Grumpy. First of all, I would like to thank State Senator Brad Hoylman and Councilmember Keith Powers for their work in advocating for the tenants at Grand Central Terminal. We formed Cafe Grumpy in 2005 in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And when we took over the Grand Central, when we opened our store at Grand Central Terminal in 2014, it was one of the proudest moments of our life. We closed our Grand Central store on March 15th, and since reopening on June 8th, our daily sales have been down over 80% on average. The MTA has always been a pioneer and an example that other landlords in New York City followed. The effort in the 1990s to reimagine the terminal as a vibrant shopping and dining destination was 20 years ahead of its time. More recently, encouraging locally owned businesses into the terminal was equally trend-setting. Once again, the MTA has an opportunity to be a pioneer by both setting an example as to a fair and equitable solution to the handling of commercial rents during the pandemic, but also more importantly, by focusing on the long-term vibrancy of the terminal rather than short-term dollars. The terminal is a much better place by having the energy and atmosphere of local businesses as its tenants. And the temporary policy regarding existing rents is a lifeline for those businesses. Moreover, we need this policy approved because our current level of sales at the terminal does not cover our rent, let alone the salaries of our staff. We are very proud of our store at Grand Central Terminal, and we hope that this policy regarding temporary policy for existing rents is approved to allow us to stay. Thank you.
The next speaker is Anthony Cicerone.
Hi, good morning. My name's Anthony Cerrone. I'm the owner of Lilac Chocolates. Lilac has been in Grand Central Market since 1999, and we've been in New York City since 1923. This has been the most devastating year for our company and many other small businesses alike. Our sales dropped 93% at the start of the pandemic, and last month in September, our sales were still down over 63%. Like many small businesses, we are family-owned businesses in New York City. We don't have corporate backing. We don't have investors with deep pockets to keep us going. So that's why we very much appreciate that the MTA is considering the rent proposal that's before you. The rent proposal will help many businesses like us get through this period of time by aligning our expenses with our revenues. And it will also help save all the jobs that are associated with all the small businesses that help bring services to the terminal and other places in the city. Thank you for considering it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jason Anthony.
Good morning, MTA Board. Jason Anthony, Vice President, Passengers United. This month, I'm going to bring the same agenda that I brought last month, the discrimination against MTA employees. I've been seeing that more MTA employees, especially in transit, are testing positive to COVID-19, but they don't know where to get tested There's no PPE provided. Customers like myself, we ride less the subway because of all of this. And especially when we bring concerns to Sarah E. Feinberg and Sarah Meyer, they don't respond to us on Twitter or nothing. I'm very disappointed at their performance at this point, and I demand an answer to this, especially to Patrick Joseph Foy, that has a Twitter account but never responds to it. Let me see. There's a particular transit employee that's been 7 months without pay. That's outrageous. And also, responding to the critics of Mr. Tim Minton, I am a disgruntled customer because I'm very disappointed how New York City Transit is handling COVID-19, cutting overnight services in the Bronx and Queens, and leaving people stranded everywhere. The MTA has to do better. And not only that, on weekends, the mainline customers on the Long Island Railroad, they get screwed over. Let's give them a better treatment, shall we? And that's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you. The next speaker is Alita Dupree.
Thank you, Board Chair Pat Foy and members. Alita Dupree for the record. My pronouns are she and her. It's good to be back with you. How about some subway for you? Not just necessary for many, but can be fun as well. I think we should have a dedicated email address for submitting correspondence to the board. Other agencies have it. I think of something like board@mta.info. How about that? Thank you for continuing the Omni fare payment. I see that we're over 2/3 done. And I read buried in the board book that the Bronx has the buses on Omni. So it's important we keep pushing at that and to get the app turned on and the fare card turned on so we can incorporate reduced fare passes. And not everybody has smartphones. So we want to get everybody able to participate as soon as possible. I have a damaged MetroCard story, 6 years in New York City. My card got damaged and I had to go all the way back to Stone Street from Queens. Not an easy day for me. Continue the work for the ADA accessibility. Still in this challenging time, it's important to emphasize full accessibility on all of the stations, both on the subway and the rail. We want everybody to be able to participate fully in using these systems. And the renewable power system for our subway. New Jersey Transit last week made a decision to push forward with renewables to power their railroad, moving away from natural gas. So we got to plan that as well. And Grand Central is legendary and historic. Music of Jerry Rafferty. He wrote a song called Right Down the Line. Can't think of a better piece of railroad music, reminding me of Grand Central Terminal and the underrunning third rail through the Park Avenue Tunnel and into the light. It's good to be back with you to bring some positive energy and to be reminded always that the MTA can be summed up in one word, and that word is legendary. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Andy Pollock.
Good morning, MTA Chairman Foy, and good morning, members of the board. Let's get down to business. First of all, I would like to discuss the awful incident that took place back on October 21st. We had 2 incidents involving vehicles, the first on the Ronkonkoma line and the second at the Hempstead line. First of all, regarding the Hempstead line, thank you very much for transporting the customers east of Stewart Manor that were able to get to Nassau Boulevard, Garden City, Country Life Press, and of course, the final stop, Hempstead. However, for people on the Ronkonkoma line that evening, they were told to go to 40th Street and 3rd Avenue in the east side of Manhattan and pay Hampton Jitney $15 just to head east, which is completely unacceptable. How come in New Jersey you are allowed to cross honor with private bus carriers, but the MTA doesn't seem to do that? And that's another example that happened on the Harlem line back on October 22nd. There was no service between Southeast and North White Plains. So there was no other alternative transportation given, which is completely unacceptable. So that has to change. And one positive before I yield my time, I want to thank the board for finally realizing it was time to give shuttle buses, because we have another shutdown scheduled on November 14th and 15th. So we need more shuttle buses going into 2021, because we know there's going to be more grade crossing removals at Westbury and at Mineola. So with that, thank you very much. And November, I will be discussing any service cuts. Yield my time.
The next speaker is Miriam Fisher.
I want to say good afternoon to the MTA board and all attendees. I want to start with a quote by Andy Byford that accessibility is a moral imperative. Today in the city, an online journal, one of the headlines was New Omni leaves disabled subway riders waiting. When will the new Omni cards be usable for people with disabilities, seniors, students, people who are getting reduced fares, people with the greatest income disparities, again on hold, needs and immediacy ignored? I remember a MTA meeting where I had testified how my card and turnstile often not working, and I would get stranded without anybody, at the desk to help me straighten it out and get on. New technology, what about the rest of us? Return to the subway, how to generate more income, publicize multiple voices, such as the recent study, a research study by Sam Schwartz, that the MTA was not the incubator of the virus, not primarily transmitted by touch, but airborne. Closing at night for cleaning, not necessary. Chairman Foy has called it hygiene theater, expensive, difficulty for night riders and night workers. There is airborne ventilation, 18 times filtered per hour, buried in a New York Times article way back over the summer that very few people are aware of. These issues have to be publicized, the science and the facts, and to get people back on the subway. Concern about the Second Avenue subway, an exorbitantly expensive multi-billion-dollar project for 3 stops in time of MTA dire financial distress. No one's suggesting light rail, express buses, cheaper, less disruptive of neighborhoods, easier to make accessible for people with disabilities. Look to models in Europe, and even our neighbor, New Jersey, is incorporating light rail. Thank you for listening and for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Andy Quito.
Hey guys, it's me, Andy Quito. I'm a member of Passengers United, representing the LIRR riders, New York City Transit, and Metro North riders. I want to get into what happened last week on the Long Island Railroad, Ronkonkoma line and Hampstead line. Because it was two branches were suspended because of vehicles on the tracks. And here's the thing: why you didn't provide cross honoring on Hampton Jitney and provided shuttle buses for the Ronkonkoma branch? I just don't understand why you guys always discriminate against the main, like my colleague who's about to speak after me. We've been exposing this for years. Where's our shuttle bus with this on-plan service destruction? And for the Hempstead line, you left people stranded in 2 dangerous neighborhoods, Hempstead and Jamaica, where I'm at right now. How is this acceptable? And since you guys here in the MTA just don't care about us diverse people, meanwhile people on certain areas get treated better when we get to deal with all the problems and all of that. But I would say the good news, at least for the November 14, 15 weekend, we're gonna get the Z train back in the bus bridge that we were all advocating for years, for over a year. And I'm looking forward for that. I'll give you guys credit. And another thing about mask enforcement, I've been seeing a lot of people with no mask on, not wearing it properly on both the Long Island Railroad and on the subways. Is anyone why is it not being enforced? Like, I just don't understand why you guys don't enforce things on that. And it just makes me so upset. And here's one more thing about, we're gonna move on to New York City Transit. The situation at Jamaica Center is just out of control. And I've been speaking for this for over a year and nothing gets done about it. And also, please fix the stairwell at Mineola Long Island Railroad Station. That thing's a tripping hazard.
Please conclude your remarks.
It's in the house. And it's one day people are gonna trip and could get seriously hurt or even killed. That's all I gotta say. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is John Mishno.
I am speaking to you today because I am very worried about my future. I have been mentally disabled since birth and rely on public transit to get around. Things have gotten much worse for me living in Mineola, as we've endured nearly 2 months of shutdowns on the weekends, which has caused me much stress and resulted in a decline in my mental health. The lack of connecting shuttle bus service breaks your own service standards. You are supposed to provide alternative transportation during planned and unplanned disruptions. It is in your own pledge policy. This is despite the MTA owning thousands of buses. Nice Bus is not a viable alternative, especially when it isn't connecting to eastbound or westbound trains at Hicksville. One time I almost missed the train at Hicksville because the bus was late, because they're not direct routes and stop at Roosevelt Field, which is subject to traffic. Then last weekend, I had to walk home to Mineola from Garden City because the N4041 didn't show up. I'm not going to hang out in Hempstead and wait there where there's panhandlers and drug dealers. I'm happy to see a project in mid-November will include busing for us in Mineola. The second part of my fears is the service cuts and fare hikes due to Washington not giving us the federal disaster rate. And I agree, they need to help us. But what if they don't? The cuts to Long Island Railroad service, along with other transit systems, will mean it will be impossible for me to survive on Long Island anymore. Yet despite dealing with the very same prices, NJ Transit isn't cutting service or raising fares. New Jersey has raised gas taxes and taxes on millionaires to keep essential services like transits running. I guess that's where I'll have to move if these cuts happen. It feels as if people with disabilities on limited incomes aren't welcome here anymore compared to the interests of the wealthy and mainly white from Wall Street, which, by the way, continue to get the highest standards of service in their enclaves on the South Shore. Perhaps that's where the cuts need to be focused, as they get a much higher service level than everybody else. Meanwhile, we're being squeezed out by ever-worsening service elsewhere on the island. It feels as if these could be my last days on Long Island. The choice is up to you. Thank you for listening and take care.
Thank you. The next speaker is Liam Blank.
Good morning. My name is Liam Blank. I am the Policy and Communications Manager for Tri-State Transportation Campaign, which is a nonprofit organization fighting for sustainable mobility in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Since the coronavirus pandemic shut down our region, Tri-State and our ally organizations have been fighting for more federal funding to support the MTA's operations. Unfortunately, Washington has not come through. Now the MTA is facing drastic service cuts that will affect the lives of millions of New Yorkers and hamper our economic recovery. But given the uncertain outcome of the upcoming presidential election, we believe that the MTA needs to be flexible and be prepared to introduce a different budget in December. Once we know who has been elected, we will have a better sense of how much the MTA will be getting in a new stimulus package. If and when service cuts are made or additional fare increases are considered, we strongly advise that the MTA please provide the public with as much opportunity for input as possible so that service cuts can be targeted instead of broad cuts across the board. Furthermore, the subway must return to 24-hour operation to help overnight workers. Based on our research and the best science we have right now, the most effective ways to prevent the spread of COVID is through mask compliance, social distancing, and hand washing. Therefore, it is not necessary to continue shutting down the entire system every night for deep cleanings. There are far less disruptive ways to keep the system clean and riders safe. Lastly, we commend the MTA and all of your workers, whom we now know have had an infection rate as high as 25%, for your heroic and monumental efforts to keep our city and economy moving. Thank you.
The next speaker is Maureen O'Brien.
Hi, I'm Maureen O'Brien, President and CEO of New York State Industries for the Disabled. October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and on October 20th, we hosted our annual meeting in Albany, celebrating customers and workers. The Metropolitan Transit Authority was awarded our Customer of the Year award for a public authority. We all saw the news coverage out of New York, where the subways in particular served as lifelines for essential workers getting to their jobs at hospitals, nursing homes, public safety offices, and other sites that remained open. The MTA turned to NYSID for nightly high-touch point disinfecting services at over 50 subway stations. Work provided by 4 member agencies and a NYSED corporate partner. These workers with disabilities have supported the front line with appropriate training and personal protective equipment to serve their communities and this valued, long-standing NYSED customer. Although the MTA could not be with us in Albany to celebrate their award, we salute you for providing work to so many individuals at New York State Industries for the Disabled's member agencies for many years, and especially through COVID-19. The MTA's work is never done, and we're humbled to be an integral part of it. Thank you.